Hey, what's up everybody? This is Never Stop Building. My name's Jason and today we're going to be talking about how to get your CDL Class A driver's license. So if you want to drive big trucks like this, stick around. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in getting your commercial driver's license. The last time I got something that was called Class A, my Class A contractor's license, I made a video explaining sort of the nitty-gritty of how I did it, and it seemed to be pretty popular. So check up there for a link to that. But if you're here, you probably are more interested in commercial driver's license. So let me get this out of the way. I'm not trying to make money. I'm not affiliated with a school. I'm not trying to shill anything. I just did it, and I want to share how I did it. All right, so this is what you want. You want your Class A CDL license. My card is in the mail. This is the one they gave me at the DMV. I am happy to have this. It was a lot of work, but you can get it too. I'm going to be speaking specifically to the Class A, no restrictions, air brakes, manual transmission, and then I got the tandem triples, which is really just an extra test. The Class B and Class C are similar, but the Class A is what most people are trying to get because the Class A is the big tractor trailers, semi-trucks. That's what you want if you want to be hauling the big stuff. And I'm not going to go into all the aspects of running a trucking operation or running interstate commerce or registering a vehicle. That's a whole other mess that I don't really even know about now. I have a dot number. I'm doing this mostly to move my own equipment around. I'm not trying to get into the big trucking industry. This is just to get the driver's license. So we'll break this down into a couple different categories. I'll put it different chapters in the description so you can jump if you're looking for different parts of this. Really, I just want to share some tips, some strategies, and hopefully help somebody get their CDL and answer questions that I wish I had a video to answer. I'm going to start by giving you a rundown on all the steps you have to take to get the CDL Class A. Then I'm going to talk about how to study for these different tests you're going to have to take. I'll give you a rundown on how the tests work. I will give you a cost breakdown of everything it cost me to go from 0 to Class A CDL. And I'll also give you some road test tips and strategies for backing and the maneuvers using this little toy truck here. So let's get started. So in order to get your CDL license, you need to start by getting a DOT medical card. This is a health inspection. You go to a doctor, or there's places that do just this. They'll give you a full physical. If you are healthy and you can see, you should be able to get this medical card. And it's good for 2 years or 1 year if you have certain restrictions. And then at that point, you take the written test. In Missouri, I went to the DMV with my test results. In Colorado, I took the test at the driver's license station right there, and then they processed it. So before you go to the DMV, you're going to have to do some studying for the written test. Then you can get your CDL learner's permit. So I'm in the state of Missouri. I got one in Colorado that then expired, and then I moved to Missouri. So you go to the DMV, you give them every document you have. I believe in Missouri it's 2 proofs of residency, social security card, passport or birth certificate, your current driver's license. After you have your CDL learner's permit, you can drive a truck with somebody that has a CDL in it, full CDL, and they're the responsible driver at that point. So you can do training, you can practice. Also, you can use your CDL learner's permit to take what's called entry-level driver training. So you'll find this if you're searching around on the internet for information about this. This happened, I believe, February 2022. It used to be, you just find somebody that you trusted and they could teach you the ropes and then you could get your CDL without a lot of jumping through hoops. Now you got to take these mandatory training classes and get certified doing a certain number of hours of class and driver training. This can be very expensive and very time consuming. There's big schools that charge a lot of money. There's truck outfits that will pay for your school if you work for them for a year. My suggestion is you look for independent trainers that will take you through all the classes and certify you. I found one locally here, and she was such a sweetheart, and she was very helpful, and she taught me a million things. And it was much less expensive than going to one of these large schools, because not everybody has time to just drop everything they're doing and go to school full time. Once you've passed the written tests and you're qualified, having completed the entry-level driver training courses, then you are able to take the infamous road test. And I will discuss a little further how that whole road test goes. That's the really hard part. That's where you have to do your pre-trip inspection, your backing maneuvers, and your driving test around town. If you pass your road tests, then you go back to the DMV with your results. You have your classes done, you have passed the road test, and then you can get your actual commercial driver's license and you can start driving big rigs. Okay, so that's the overview of how to get it. So how do you actually get it? What's the nitty-gritty? When you go to the DMV in Missouri, there's this book, and this has all the information. If you study this and read this, you will surely know your stuff. Almost everything that I'm saying right now is in here somewhere. Most states have something equivalent of this guide. All the written test and all the explanation of the driving tests is in this book. I personally will be put to sleep if I read this book cover to cover. So the app that I used, I think it's on Android, I know it's on iOS, is called CDL Prep. It's a red logo. I'll put a link in the description below. Not affiliated with it at all. It's one of those successive repetition apps. There's several different categories for studying, and then you go through different levels in each category. If you get one wrong, it'll tell you what the answer was supposed to be, and then it'll bring that back up farther down the line. So I found it very useful to just drill, just answer questions, answer questions, answer questions. This is the same strategy I used in my contractor exam. Just drilling questions. These are the questions that you're going to see on the test in these apps. And you go through each of the sections that's relevant to your testing. So for what I was doing, I needed to do the general knowledge, air brakes, combination vehicles. I did not study the tandems and triples. I knew a little bit about it. I just kind of winged it when I was at the DMV, because if I failed, it didn't matter, and if I passed, I'd have it on my license. Probably not going to plan on driving triples, but it's actually kind of alarming how easy it is to get that on your license. You could also test for hazmat, which requires, I believe, a background check and some other stuff. This is not about hazmat. And there's tanker, school bus. There's some other things that I was not interested in or needed. So study those sections, drill, drill, drill. If you're consistently passing and you can get every single section right, and you really study, then you go to schedule a test. You'll go in Missouri, you go in, the state police administers it, you sit at a computer. The questions pop up, you answer the questions. You can miss, I think you can miss 10 out of 50 on the general knowledge, and 4 or 5 out of 20 on the other sections. If you drill this app and you kind of know what you're doing with the truck, you'll pass the test. It's not that hard. It does require some common sense. This is one of those types of test-taking situations where you can skip questions, and I highly recommend that as a strategy to pass these tests. If you have any doubt, skip the question, wait till the end. In Missouri, at least, if you get the 40 questions, it will just be like you passed. You don't need to try to answer all 50. So I just skipped the ones that I was a little hesitant on. The wording might have changed, or it was a little foggy. I was just like, I'm not even going to risk it. I just skipped it, and then at the end, I answered the ones that I had a little more confidence, and I was able to pass all the sections I needed to. Get my documentation, and now I was eligible for my learner's permit. So with the learner's permit, you can do the entry-level driver training. I can't speak about all the different schools. I I have heard from several people that have been in trucking a long time that, you know, they're not happy about it because it's the government mandating this, that, and the other thing. You know, just because you take a class doesn't mean you know how to drive a truck. If you don't take a class, just because you take a class, it doesn't mean you know how to drive a truck. And you can be really good at driving a truck even if you haven't taken this class. So seat time and experience is what you want to do to get good at driving a large truck. There's no replacement for getting in a vehicle and driving the maneuvers and shifting up, shifting down, and all that type of stuff. I found a independent, one-on-one training outfit in Missouri called Drew Transport, and they did a great job of working through all the information, taking me over and over and over again through the maneuvers until I was really comfortable knowing how to handle these trucks. The thing I have to say about the training, at least my training, but this will go for training in general. I feel like I'm a decent driver. I've towed trailers here and there. I drive a large truck, you know. But go in with a humble attitude and you will learn tons. I heard all these war stories about students that have been, you know, doing things for so many years and they knew this, that, and the other thing, and then they failed the test or they couldn't pass or whatever like that. Accept the information. They put these driver training classes in place because they wanted to reduce accidents and fatalities and have more competent drivers. You got to play the game. This whole thing is a big game. You want to win. Winning is getting your CDL, so you have to listen, you have to pay attention, you have to pass the tests, you have to demonstrate to the inspectors that you know how to handle these trucks. That's my experience with entry-level driver training. You might be able to find someone like I found. You might have to go to a much larger school. There's a million of them out there. I can't recommend one versus the other. I just had a great experience with this one in Missouri. All right, the road test. So what does testing day look like? There's 3 parts. Part number 1 is the pre-trip inspection. Part number 2 is the maneuvers and backing. And part number 3 is the road test itself. The first part, the pre-trip inspection, is what you see all over YouTube on how to study your pre-trip. You have to basically name hundreds of parts of the vehicle. You have to say, this is properly mounted and secured, it's not cracked, bent, or broken, it's not leaking, it's not abrasion, there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. And you name a whole bunch of different items, and they're all listed in the driver's manual. There's a link in the description below to my teacher going through the whole pre-trip for Missouri. This is something that you just got to drill. The funny thing is, and my teacher confirmed this, if you know about trucks, you're gonna have a much harder time because you're gonna be like, well, don't I need to inspect the fuel filter? Or what about the intercooler pipe? Or what about the air tank? No. Remember, this is all a game. You gotta say the right words to the DOT officer. He has to check them off. And if you check off all the things and you don't miss anything, you pass that part of the test. Obviously, when you're really looking at your own truck, you're gonna be a lot more thorough in some areas and you're gonna graze over other areas or just look out of the corner of your eye. You'll know by looking at your wheel if anything's changed since the day before. But it is important to do a thorough pre-trip around your whole vehicle because you can find any issues that could lead to a dangerous part. I'm just saying that, I mean, I really believe that. You should walk around your vehicle and check it every single time you get in it to make sure there's nothing broken with it. Or, in the case of my truck, it's still spraying oil out of the bottom of it. The way I studied for the pre-trip was I drilled with my teacher. I wrote down everything that I needed to do. Like I actually typed it out in a list, and then a friend drilled me on another truck and checked things off. And I watched a whole bunch of videos on YouTube. I think I have them saved. I can put links in the description. There's a couple of really good ones that walk you through all the different parts for each different section. You're either gonna have the front of the truck, the door back of the truck, the whole trailer, the whole component, or the whole truck itself from front to back and the trailer. And you're always gonna have coupling for combination vehicles because that's one of those things you have to get exactly right or you'll fail out because it's a very important part of a combination vehicle. All right, so that was the pre-trip inspection component. In addition to that, you're going to do an in-cab inspection and you're going to do a brake test. Again, there are good videos about how to execute the brake test successfully. Really quickly, you do a leak test, depressing the pedal. You do a flutter test to make sure the warning light comes on. You do a flutter test to make sure the trailer and tractor brakes, spring brakes come on. You do a rolling service brake test, and you do a tug test where you tug against both sets of brakes. This video is not about how to conduct those tests. There's other videos all about that, or if you have questions, just put them in the comments below. Once you've passed your pre-trip inspection and in-cab inspection and brake tests, then you're ready to do the second part of testing day, which is the backing maneuvers. At the end of this video, I'll show you some of the tips, some of the things I learned with this truck on how to practice the backing maneuvers. But in short, you're going to be asked to pull forward through a lane and then back all the way up through the lane. You're going to be asked to pull forward and then offset to one side or the other. You're going to be asked to parallel park the truck one side to the other, or do an alley dock where you back into a lane and you have to have the back of the truck within a certain distance, 3 feet from the dock. But how do you practice for these? What if you don't have a semi truck? And what if you want more practice than you're getting in your driver training class? You can rent yourself a pickup truck and a trailer, and you can get a lot of seat time backing up. I took my truck and my gooseneck out to a parking lot. Business had closed down. There was a huge parking lot. I borrowed some cones. I followed the instructions in the driver's manual on how to set up the parallel park, the pull through, and I practiced over and over and over again. And I really got a good feel for how much delay there is because when you back up, the direction starts to change on delay, so you have to sort of anticipate your next changes. Again, there's lots of good videos about how to do these backing maneuvers. I'll add to the conversation with a little bit of what I learned, because when I was studying with my instructor, it did just kind of click. I sort of understood conceptually what was going on with the truck, and it allowed me to have a good feeling on how to parallel park these large semis. But you know, as anybody's gonna tell you, you'll do it I did it perfect. I did it like that. I showed up there that morning. She was like, do a parallel, get ready for your test. I just slid it in there like I was a pro. No problem at all. And then when the test came, I was like, oh God. I like super nervous on the test. I cross over the line a little bit. You can cross over these lines, you get points added to your thing, and then if you get too many points, you fail, but you can cross over the cone line in the parallel, and you can do pull-ups, 2 free pull-ups in the parallel, for example, but if you do an extra pull-up, you get a point, but you can do it. So I got the truck in the parallel space, I just lost some points or gained some points. And since I did all the other maneuvers successfully, I passed that section of the test. Go in as comfortable as you can, executing the maneuvers comfortably, and you should be able to pass the maneuver section of the test, even if you have to do a couple extra pull-ups or something like that. So that is the second component of testing day, the maneuvers and backing, and that brings you to the third, and in my case, the most nerve-wracking section of the testing day, which was the road test. So we got in the truck and we went on a circuit throughout the town, small highways, side roads, onto the highway, off the highway, through a town, over railroad tracks. There was an emergency stop, and then re-entering safely onto the highway. Stop signs, stop lights, left turn, right turn. You gotta use your turn signals. You gotta do everything right. And the guy's sitting there, checking everything off and making sure that you don't miss anything. If you jump a curb or do anything illegal, you can basically fail instantly. Well, I don't know exactly how it's scored, but I know that there's, I think, 30 or 31 points you can get before you fail, and some of the things you do wrong is either the whole amount or almost to the whole amount. So I think you can do like one really bad thing and still pass. I'm not entirely sure how bad it can be, so just don't do any bad things. Let me tell you, shifting a 10 speed, double clutching and downshifting, oh man, I was doing okay, but once I missed a gear and ground a gear and had to coast and put it into gear and find that, then I was thinking about, am I failing because of the gears? And I was missing other gears, and oh my goodness. When I got done with the test and he said I passed, I was so happy because I was like, there's no way. You can get away with, you know, a little coast, a little bit of ground gears. You know, they know that you're new to this. I definitely need to practice my shifting. Fortunately, I have that big 13-speed Road Ranger to do it on. So that's the road test. And once you've done all the road tests, and if you don't accumulate too many points that cause you to fail, you pass and you get your document, and you can take that document to the DMV with all the same stuff. You gotta bring all that same stuff again. Proof of residency, driver's license, passport, birth certificate, social security card, CDL, the CDL permit, and you'll get your temporary CDL license and you're eligible to drive the big rigs. Just because you get the license doesn't mean you know what you're doing at all. As I said, it's a bit of a game. It's a game to get the license, and then you can do it legally, but it doesn't mean you can do it well. So obviously practice, practice, practice. I've made a couple cool friends throughout the course of this process, and sometimes I text them and ask them questions about this or that. I watch a bunch of videos, and Lord knows when I start driving this international up to Maine, I'm gonna get a lot of shifting practice. And I probably will be a little more comfortable because I won't have the DOT officer looking over my shoulder. So I encourage you to study hard, be humble, get your CDL, and then practice, 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 and be a safe driver. How much did it all cost? This is what you want to know, right? There's basically 4 things: medical, learner's permit, entry-level driver training, and the license itself. So for the medical exam, it's $95. For the learner's permit, which pays for the test, at least in this area, the written test, it was $41. My one-on-one independent entry-level driver training course was $14.95. It's a good deal. And then the license itself was $102. Works out to under $1,750, under $2,000, which is a great deal. Yeah, so depending on where your class is, mine was fairly far away, so I spent some money on fuel there, but it might not cost much more than this if you find a good and reasonable driver training instructor. There's obviously other expenses once you start driving a large truck. There's insurance, there's registration, there's DOT fees, there's all this other stuff that I'm still learning about. Even just to do really, really low level hauling for myself, there's all this bureaucracy you gotta navigate. So hit me up in the comments or on Patreon if you're interested in, if you have any questions about that. I'll do what I can, but I'm not the expert on this. So I hope you found this valuable. And before we go, I'm gonna switch up the camera and I'm gonna show you down on the ground a little crash course in how I could understand backing up a semi-truck and how you have to think about it when you're doing the backing maneuvers. So if you're interested in backing up a truck, keep watching. Otherwise, I hope you found this interesting and we'll see you next time. So let's go to the road. All right, so I'll just go through each of these maneuvers just to really quickly show you what you got in store for you. And then I'll focus in a little bit more on the fundamentals of backing up, the way I understand them and the way that made sense to my brain. Because if I don't understand how something works, it doesn't matter what you're telling me, cut left, cut right, or whatever. I just don't know how to do it. I need to understand it so I can kind of internalize it. So for the backing exercise, you drive forward through the cones. Until you get out of the cones, and then you back it up. This is harder than it looks. This is like the real thing. You back up through the cones. Oh my goodness. And it doesn't really matter if it goes out of whack after you get out of the cones, as long as you get the vehicle behind here. So this is working well. This is working better than I thought it would in terms of steering, because those little deviations, if you don't correct for them, you're going to start to go out of the way and you can't really fix it. So the tip here is you want to only do very slight steering corrections. You don't want to go lock to lock. Okay, so then there's offset, right? Offset, you back the truck from one lane and then you offset it into another lane. This is one where using a pull-up basically makes this effortless, because right, if you're here, you pull up, cut, recorrect. If you start to get out of control, you just pull forward, and then it just turns into a backing maneuver. So that's the offset. Then we got parallel. So parallel is the length of the truck plus like 15 feet ahead of it. The conventional wisdom on parallel is you pull your truck all the way up till the far axle is in line with this cone up here. You cut, then you straighten out and cut the other way. You straighten your truck out, and then you got to cut back so that you parallel in like that. Pull forward. And then there's the alley dock, which the conventional wisdom there is you drive around, you leave quite a bit of space, then you're cutting, and then you got to continue the cut, line your truck up, and back it into the alley, making sure the back of the truck is within a range 3 feet. And you can get out up to 2 times to check. You can pull forward up to 2 times. All of these are without deducting points. If you do more than 2 pull-ups, you'll get points docked. So there's a lot of videos on the intricacies of maneuvers and how to do them. What I really want to talk about is how the trailer actually reverses under different situations. So right now my steering is perfectly straight, perfectly straight. If I go in reverse and I make very slight corrections, I'm going to go straight backwards. Okay, so what happens when I turn the wheel all the way to the left and I go straight backwards? So what it's doing is it's starting to push, it's starting to jackknife the trailer. So now we have an angle between these two. If I continue back, I will get myself into a full jackknife. And if I try to get out of it by turning the other way, all I'm doing is rotating the whole truck around. What I found really important is understanding the concept of building angle. So let's set up a different situation. Everything is perfectly straight, but I'm going to lift up the back of the truck and I'm going to move it off angle. So all the wheels on the truck are straight, but the trailer's not straight. So if I'm going back, look what's happening. The angle between this and this is increasing. And this is important for the alley dock or parallel or other things. There's a certain point where when you build enough angle, Then you want to start to come out. These tires don't turn enough. And you come back in line. With the trailer, right? Let's say I'm trying to parallel park along this line here. So I'm gonna start my cut. So what I'm doing here, I've turned the wheel all the way to the right, and that's creating angle between the tractor and the trailer. Now I want to get back in front of the trailer so that I position it at an angle to the road, right? So then I'm counter steering to get back in front and now I'm at an angle, right? At a certain point you pause and straighten up, and then you keep doing that cut. And then you quickly turn in to line everything up. Let's do it again. You start, you turn all the way to the left to create angle. And then you counter steer to get back in front and straighten up, and then you're in front of the trailer. You get into the space, and then you turn the same direction. You turn all the way right again. That continues the jackknife around, and then you flip it completely, and that brings you in to parallel. The hardest thing for me was when I was here, is I turned this way like I was parallel parking a car, turned to the left. And while I would have parallel parked the tractor correctly, the trailer's off the road now. You have to think about everything sort of opposite, and that's not good for me because I can't think like that. So now when you're actually, everything's straight and you're at an angle to the parallel, you turn the opposite of what you would think to do, which brings the trailer around, and then you do your parallel park. You flip it. You have to wait for this trailer to switch sides. Because if you go back and it's like this, it goes this way. If you go back and it's like this, it goes that way. So no amount of backing, when it's like this, is gonna flip it over here. So that's an important thing to recognize. So you're going, if you're trying to get into this space, you gotta go left, creates the jackknife, which means all backing is gonna move it this way. But you gotta really quickly get back in front of it, because at this point, now you have to want it to go this way, right? You wait for this to get over like that, and then your left turn brings the trailer straight again. That is some things that really helped me understand how to back these things up and pass my test. All right, well, thanks for watching till the end. I hope this was an informative video. If you liked it, please let me know in the comments section. And if you really liked it, head over to Patreon and buy me a cup of coffee or something like that. If you follow the channel, I really appreciate all the support, and you'll probably be seeing me doing some crazy trucking as I move my whole shop to Maine in the next couple months. So thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.